Hello, I am Ann-Peggy, and today I want to talk about a very heavy topic, that is suicide. When I was a teenager, I struggled with suicidal thoughts and I didn't want to live here. And I had no tools to work with it. I saw that as something wrong with me. But it was so painful. I had panic attack and I felt other people, and that was hard because I had a habitat with a lot of fear. So since I didn't understand it and I saw this as a curse that I was the way I was, I in my mind wanted to die, and I also prepared to die, to commit suicide, and I started to write a letter to my parents. And it was actually when I wrote the letter to my mother and father oh, I felt their grief, what it would do to them. So I found out, okay, I have to cope for a period more. So I didn't, even though I walked to the place where I'm supposed to commit suicide, I didn't do it because I'm here. And when I was 16, I fell in love, and then I went into this kind of bubble of very good emotions. So it was kind of jumping over to that. But what I didn't know was the man I fell in love with, he had a lot of suicidal thoughts as well. So we kind of resonated on that level. So that was one of the reasons for the love, kind of, because we are resonating with people that carry the same pattern as us. And after we had a turbulent period, because we argued, we loved each other, argued because he has his trauma and I had my trauma, so they really came up together. So, but when I was 18, I got pregnant and we got our first child. And we named him Alexander, and he was born in 1993. And what happened when I became pregnant, it was that he was my whole world. I really loved this child. I felt him in my belly, and I did everything that I possibly could to give him the best surroundings, and I wanted this child to have it much, much better than myself. But what I didn't know, that my subconscious programming will affect him more than I knew. So, and he was also born with colic. He cried and cried and cried for over 2 years, 2.5 years he cried. And I was in and out of doctor, chiropractor, and a lot of treatment in the Western medicine, but no one could help Alexander. And they say he has just chronic colic. But what they didn't tell me was that he was highly sensitive, as I am. So if I had understood my highly sensitivity, I could have helped my son much better than I did. But anyhow, when he was 3, his colic period was over, he got cancer, liver cancer. So his liver had cancer, and this is fear. Liver is one of the organs that really carry fear. And I didn't know that at that time either. So I just surrendered to the doctor and what they say. We have to treat it with chemotherapy and all this treatment that the Western medicine had. And I was so afraid, so afraid. I begged, please, God, please don't let him die. So I did everything that I could, but I was most of all afraid. So I cried and a lot of things. And several periods it looks like he would die because of bad treatment, because they did wrong. They had a microscopic test on him, and that went wrong because he had lung disease, and they didn't know he had lung disease because they have given him so much medicine, so it was under the radar. And when they did this microscopic thing with his inside his body, he almost died. He was away. They couldn't get him back, and then I became hysteric. But I wasn't supposed to talk about this. But Alexander had a hard start in his life. And as 11-year, he was in an accident and he broke something in his bone. Both his he fell down several meters, and the bone, it kind of went up to the back. And I have back problems from my father and from my grandfather, so we inherit a lot of pattern from our ancestor, and he did it. So kind of he attracted the accident when he fell down from this. He was in a ladder and fall down, and then his back problem started for real. And he said to me, "Mother, I will have pain body for the rest of my life." And I said, no, we will find a solution. And I really started to take my pain body when in 2013, when my doctor said that I would die. So the doctors told me that I would die because it has been so much stress. I have 5 children. 2 of them, especially Alexander and the younger brother, had a lot of heavy health issues. So I didn't sleep for a long period, and yeah, I did whatever I could, but it wasn't good enough. I felt it wasn't good enough because I was only myself, even though I had a man that supported me. My husband is not the biological father of the 2 oldest. Alexander and Tyler has another father. I understood when I was 21 that we couldn't continue together because he started to threaten me, and he had so much trauma in himself, and he put all his trauma on me. So I had to take the 2 kids we had together and go out of that relationship. And I met the husband I have today, and we had 3 children after that. But the 2 oldest, the one that I have with a traumatic father, they had much more health problem than the other 3. The 3 is normal. All children have sickness and kind of balance out, but the 2 oldest have much more than the 2 youngest. And I believe, and I know that some of the aspect is because both mother and father had a lot of trauma. Me and the biological father to the 2 oldest had much more trauma. My new husband doesn't have so much trauma, so he's kind of more in balance. Of course, he has inherited his ancestor and parents, but they are much more balanced than it was with the first man I attracted. And actually, when I met the man I married, it was like he was too good to me because the soul knew that he was the man for me, but it was like, you are too good to me because I didn't feel the pain in him. He was so perfect, and I felt that I couldn't be that perfect. Even though I wanted, I didn't feel that I owned it. But he has really helped me, and since he has been my husband, he has kind of also hold the sacred space for me to grow and to become the medicine woman that I am. So we had already before this life planned to support each other, but that's another story. And back to Alexander's story. He committed suicide in 2015, 2nd of July 2015. It was 2 days before he would have been 22 years. His birthday was 4th of July. So, and he didn't like a lot of people and people to look at him. He wanted to be in the shadow, and he was there for everyone. He was there for his siblings, for his friend, and he was this warm, nice, amazing boy who wanted just goodness and wanted to be there for everyone. So everyone loved Alexander because he was just an amazing boy. And he took his life. This is the Thursday afternoon. Me and my daughters came to the house he lived in. He lived in a house with 5 boys. They were in a collective, and 5 boys. And we came to this house 1 hour after he committed suicide. We came from a supermarket, and when driving home from the supermarket, we passed the house where Alexander lived with his friend. So, and then it came a police car and an ambulance, and they passed us, and I thought, oh, where are they going? And then they stopped next to the house where Alexander lived, and then I kind of panicked. I just knew, because Alexander had said that, "Mother, I am struggling," and I tried to help him, but I said, "No, I will do it my way." And his way was to commit suicide. I cannot go into all the details because this is long, but he had struggle. And the final thing was, this is not to blame someone, his heart was broken. He had a girlfriend and she had break up their relationship, and he took this so hard. He had his pain on the body, and when she said, "Well, we have to split up," this was the last kind of hope for him, because they had talked about moving together, and he really looked forward to move to her, because she lived in America and he in Norway. So they were couples on the internet, like a lot of people are now, and planned to move together. But the last thing he did before he committed suicide, he sent his ex-girlfriend, "I really love you," a text, and then she never heard from him again. But after he committed suicide, I had already started to open my spiritual gift and becoming a medicine woman, but I was in the beginning. And I wanted to help Alexander, and I said, "No, I know there is a solution for us, the pain body we carry." But he said, "You have become so alternative. You have been spiritual. I don't want to be spiritual. I don't want to be eternal, alternal thinking. So I want to do it my way." So he stopped me for helping, because we had tried a lot, but not all. So when I really went deep into my transformation and all my pain body, he don't want to join me, and he said stop. So he committed suicide. When he committed suicide, of course I cried, and I went into a deep grief. And 1.5 days after he committed suicide, I went into the shower, and I decided that I need to just go out of this sadness, and I wanted to be a therapist for my kids and for all the people that came to our house. I'm a therapist, and I'm a good therapist, and I knew that I could bring something to them. So I just chose to, okay, my grief has to be on hold, so I wanted to be there for people like I have done in my work for a lot of years. And when I went into the shower, taking a shower and doing this, then Alexander came, and we had a telepathic conversation. And this was the strongest telepathic conversation ever. And it was because it was so emotional. All emotion I have ever felt, the bigness, the godness, the sorrow, the anger, everything came when I spoke to Alexander the first time in the shower after he passed. And he wanted me to understand where he came from, and wanted me to accept his choice. And I said, I cannot accept his choice. And we kind of not argue, but I said, Alexander, I know what you are saying to me, but you are in another dimension. I'm still on Mother Earth. I'm sensing all this emotion. It is so much pain. We have both lived with pain body, but this pain is even more crucial. It's more hard. It's really, yeah, I cannot accept. I can't. I can't do what you want me to accept what you did. I cannot do that, because that was not a good thing to do. And I said to you, we can find solution. And you said, Mother, you cannot help me forever. I want to do it my way. So because you were so stubborn, you wanted to do it your way. And I said, being a mother, it's the best thing for a mother is to help their child. We want to support our child, but you refused me to help the last, because you said, no, it's enough. I'm a grown-up man and I want to do it my way. So, but this conversation we had, it was beautiful. So even though Alexander brought the deepest sorrow, the deepest everything inside me, because I grieve and cried and cried and cried and cried, and I was unstoppable. After 2 months I started. He also was the one that held me up, because we communicated. Because as I said, I tried to be the therapist for the sister and brothers to Alexander and all other people who came. But I managed almost for 2 months, 1.5 to 2 months, I managed to go into this role. But then I collapsed, and I collapsed big time, because I couldn't I couldn't hold it anymore. The grief I carried was so big, so I fell deep, deep, deep into not so pleasant. It was hard, and I cried, and I went to the bed, and under my blanket I wanted to be alone. I don't want to talk to anyone. I just was under there crying. I couldn't cope with anything, and we decided, the family or my husband said, okay, it's okay for you to take a time out, because I went to a therapist. I'm myself a Gestalt therapist, and one of my colleagues said, maybe you can go and speak to me. And I spoke with her, and she said, I think the best for you is a time out. And I said, yeah, I think about it, but I don't know how my man and the rest of the children will take it. Well, you are no good for them anyhow, and that's true. So I took 5 weeks time out, and I went to Spain for 5 weeks. And these 5 weeks, I got really sick because I went through the pain. I shaked, I got the flu, I puked, and I cried, and I vibrated, and I didn't eat, and I was almost in bed all the time, but I went for some walk just to get out of that. But I let my body really go into the grieving process. And I met a woman there, a neighbor, and she came into the apartment I rented sometimes and wanted to give me some food because she saw that I was in real pain. But this 5 week was very good for me because I let my body grieve, and it wasn't pretty, it was ugly, but it was necessary. But my husband and the other children collapsed kind of, but I needed to come in balance. So I used 1 year to really go through the grief with Alexander. But after 7 months I was traveling, and then I said, Alexander, I was in another grieving period, and I said, Alexander, I really need you to come into form, because I had communicated to him so much telepathically, and I said, well, I really need you to come into form. Please, can you please incarnate, and we can have a relationship on earth? Because yes, it's nice that you guide me and all what you help, but I really need you in physical form. And why I asked him about this, he didn't answer. So, and it went two more weeks, and I was hiking on the mountain. Then I'm in a meditative state. And after this hiking with my dog, I went into the shower, and then he came again. In the beginning, the first couple of years, he most came when I was in the shower or next to a sea. We are both sign of water, so that's our element. And then he said, Mother, I will come in physical form, but it will be hard for you to contact me in the first year. And I said, why? And he didn't answer. And I thought, okay, I hoped he would come as my grandson or granddaughter. And I thought, okay, maybe the other children I have, maybe they will have partner that don't like me. And they said, our child is not supposed to meet their grandmother because she's crazy. I had a lot of thoughts because this was my human side coming up. Why can't I meet you when you come into physical form? But then a couple of years later, he came. Now I am going incarnating again in physical form. And I have gone with another soul that also have committed suicide. So we are 2 souls that have chosen to incarnate again because we want to kind of balance out what we have done. And I had never heard about these 2 souls going together. And then we have a medium that is known in Norway, Lily Bendis. And I called her, had never called her before, but they said, call her. And I said, can't you just talk to me? I don't need other mediums. I'm a medium myself. Can't you just tell her? But she have other information. Lily Bendis had other information, and you also need to listen to other, because then you kind of, it's easier on me also, that it's not only me. So I got an appointment with Lily Bendis, and I told her, well, my son said that he is incarnating again, and he's incarnating with another soul, 2 souls in one body. Yeah, that's, a lot of people do that when they take hard journeys on Mother Earth. I have heard about 10 souls incarnating together in one soul. Wow! So what we understand as a physical body and the way we think on Mother Earth is totally different if we see it as a soul perspective. So your child or your aunt or someone can be several souls incarnated in one body, even though we see it as one body. That is also why we see a lot of sickness. We have a lot of personality. Maybe it's a lot of souls in that, but I'm not supposed to go there now. So Alexander told me that he was incarnating, and he told me the mother, and the mother had a lot of trauma. So the other soul Alexander incarnated with was the father, biological father, to the biological mother in this life. He's now a child. It's some years ago, and I don't want to talk about it because they don't want it to be they don't want it to be talked about. But I spoke to his biological mother, and she is spiritual, but she has so much trauma. And she has trauma from her father because he committed suicide, and a lot of things happen with her mother, and the family have a lot of trauma. And also the biological father have a lot of trauma. So he has incarnated to a family with a lot of trauma. And in Norway, we have a system to help people with trauma. So Alexander don't live with his biological mother. He's placed with another family. They also have trauma, but on the outside, it looks like they are coping. Everything looks normal. They are normal, but they have a lot of wound inside that they haven't seen. And I try to contact them, and they think that I'm crazy because I talk with other dimension. And in Norway, some have waken up to this, and other hasn't. So I tried several times to contact them and say, can I just meet the boy you have kind of adopted for just one time? Because I knew that he would recognize me, because I have worked with children, and until they are 4 or 5 years, they remember a lot. So I knew that he would remember me. But if I meet him after he's 5 years, he will probably not remember me. But I tried several times, and I also get a friend of me to talk nicely to them just to meet him once, but they said no. So what Alexander said, it will be hard for you to meet me when I'm young. That's correct. But I know I will meet him when he's a teenager. And even though he lives with this adopted family, he will not live with this adopted family for his whole life. But I won't go into that. But I know that I will learn from Alexander. I have been his daughter in another life. When we lived in Wales, in the late 1800s, he was my father and I was his child, and I died from him when I was 13. And we have also lived in Egypt, and he was my brother. So Alexander and me have had a lot of lives together. And 2 of my children, I have had a lot of life. The other children, not so many. So the soul have a plan. And he is now coming into form, and I will still continue to learn from him in some years. But what I wanted to tell you, if you know someone that have suicidal thoughts, or you yourself have suicidal thoughts, there are so many good solutions now, and it is actually, you are in your mind. You are only in your mind, but your mind, your programming become your body. So you program your whole body, your emotion and your mind and everything. But it is easy to shift. I have now shifted. I didn't know it was so easy. So if you commit suicide or people commit suicide, we want to come back, and we want to come into the same kind of pattern that we went out of, or even harder. He have chosen even harder circumstances. Alexander has now chosen a family with harder circumstances than he had in this family, because I was very supportive, even though I didn't transform my pain body until I was 40, and that was in the period he committed suicide 2 years after I really started to transform my pain body, Alexander. So suicidal patterns and thoughts, we have to lift it up and see that there are dimensions beyond time. Even though living on earth can be hard, I know. I have lived with a pain body for 40 years, so I know all about it. But there are so many solutions. And I also chose to go to all this pain in different layers. And I worked as a therapist for so many years with people coming to me with abuse and sexual abuse and really dark experiences. And there are so many methods. I have used EFT power. Tapping is very good. And if you also use regression, going back to your wounded child, and healing, and using the light, the God source, because we have a source. I had done a lot of therapy with a lot of clients for years, but it was when I really kind of embodied the light and the God source of me, then I could heal them even further, because I have experienced so much miracle. But the biggest miracle is that for me to witness all the miracle I can do working with all my patients and all my clients. Because when we include the light of us, wow, you are light. And the densest and the darkest it is possible to go is on earth. So when we talk about hell, the darkest hell is on earth. And can be so much hell, like my son Alexander, he commits suicide. But I just want you to know that it's not like a punish if you come back and you have to have a hard life again. When you go out of this body, because this body feel the duality, on earth we have to adjust to the duality. Everything on Mother Earth are built up of duality. But you can come in an inner state where you are heaven on earth. I live from the state heaven on earth, even though I have to feel this pain body. Now I have a lot of pain in my hands and my feet because it's freezing cold. It's minus 15 degrees and it's very cold. I didn't think it would be so cold, but I know who I am. I know my light. I know my soul. I have merged past life and future life. I have decided future life. And also I have decided to be the medicine of the new era, because one of my gifts is to live beyond space and beyond time, and also to travel in dimension. And I have been in the dark night of the soul for 6 years, and I have followed so many patients and clients through their stuff. But what we are moving into is that all of us are becoming medicine woman and medicine man of the new era. And I teach people how to become medicine man and medicine woman. So I have made the course Divinima Reset. And Divinima Reset means that you live from your animation, your soul animation, and you reset from your social programming. So this is one of many, and I also heal. I have a lot of other things, but the Divinima Reset really goes deep. I am now just following a group in the Divinima Reset, and they are so deep. And I said it, this is what you want, because then you really live from heaven on earth. But at the same time, now they are in this deep thing, and because we have to go through it to transform it. We cannot embody more light if we don't go through the emotion. So the old generation, me and older, we have to go through it, and we have to help the kids because they come clean. They are clean, so we have to give them more supportive habitat and environment. So we really need to upgrade Mother Earth because she is poison. So we have to treat her with reverence and respect, because this is the foundation we have for this avatar when we live as human on Mother Earth. Yes, so remember, suicide, it's not a solution. I know I have lived with suicidal thoughts for so many years, and I know it's easy to go into that thoughts, but we don't want it. And also, when I talk about it, I want to mention last thing. When I was in the 1300, I lived in Guatemala. I have had 2 lives in Guatemala. But when in the 1300, I lived in Guatemala, and I experienced a lot of sexual abuse. They abused me very much, and I had planned that life. And since I was so much light, I thought it will be easy for me, even though I knew what I planned. But when I was in Guatemala, experienced all this violence and they taking advantage of me, I committed suicide as a 19-year-old woman. So I committed suicide in that life because it was so hard, they taking me, and sexual abuse. So I was in the jungle. I went to the jungle, and and offer myself to a big puma. So he ate me. And that was easier for me to commit suicide in the jungle and than to live with all this sexual abuse. So we have to, all this crazy thing we have done on Mother Earth, it has to stop. Sexual abuse, it's pattern that we have inherited from our mother, father, ancestor. But now we are going to a lighter time. We are coming to the divine essence of us, because in essence all of us are divine. But we have played so much with the darkness, and now it's enough darkness. Now we are going against heaven on earth. So find yourself a friend, a partner, or a therapist that can help you if you have suicidal thoughts or struggle with these issues. All the best to you from me. Bye bye.